The message arrived on a Thursday morning. "Hi, Stephen. It's Linda. I know it's been years, but I'd love to reconnect." 3 decades since she'd walked out and told him he'd never amount to anything. He didn't reply. Instead, he pulled up his company's personnel database and typed a name, Marsh. One search returned Donald Marsh, dispatcher, Cincinnati Center, 7 years of service. Linda's brother-in-law had been working for Stephen's company all this time, without ever knowing whose signature was on his paychecks.
The woman who said, "I'd never amount to anything," just walked into my world without knowing it.
He pulled Donald's personnel file. A model employee, already recommended for promotion. He had built an empire from scratch, and now fate was handing him the perfect moment. He typed a reply to Linda. "Coffee. Thursday. Let's catch up." The game was on. March 1994. At 38, Stephen Reeves worked 12-hour shifts in a dusty logistics warehouse on the edge of Cincinnati, sweat and grease on his hands. The company was paying him just enough to survive, but not enough to dream. His wife Linda had stopped believing in his potential long before that afternoon. She appeared in the doorway, arms folded, eyes already saying goodbye.
"I can't do this anymore, Stephen. You are almost 40, and you are still packing boxes. You've got no direction, no ambition."
After 6 years of marriage, this is what it comes down to.
"Face it, Stephen. You'll never amount to anything."
She tore their wedding photo in half before she left. Her side landed on the kitchen table. His side went into the trash. Within 45 minutes, she had packed her suitcase and was dragging it toward a waiting car. She didn't look back. Not at the house, not at the marriage, not at the marriage, not at the man she'd dismissed as a lifelong failure.
Never amount to anything. Those 6 words would echo in his skull for the next 30 years.
3 decades later, Stephen looked out his office window at the skyline he now owned.
She said I'd never amount to anything. Now 340 people work for me.
The message on his phone still glowed. "I'd love to reconnect." He almost laughed.
Her brother-in-law, Donald, works right here in Cincinnati. 7 years, and she has no clue.
He opened Donald's personnel file. Model employee, promotion pending.
I'll make sure he gets that promotion. Donald is innocent in all this.
He slid the file into his briefcase and stood, straightening his blazer. The meeting was in an hour. He walked through the lobby, past the logo he built from nothing.
For 30 years, I've waited for this. Not revenge, closure.
He stepped outside. The autumn air felt sharp, like the blade of a long-held promise. Before the coffee meeting, Stephen made a quiet detour to the Cincinnati Dispatch Center. Donald Marsh was still at his station, headset pressed to one ear as he finished a call.
Take I-75 to exit 14, then call me back. I'll have the paperwork ready.
A small frame on his cubicle wall held a photo of him with a woman and 2 kids.
7 years here. Linda never once mentioned him by name.
Stephen pulled up Donald's metrics on his tablet. Every quarter, the same result. Exceeds expectations. Promotion recommended. Quarter 3.
Donald's been loyal the whole time. He doesn't deserve to be caught in this. But I'll make sure he gets that promotion. It's the least I can do.
Stephen slipped out as quietly as he'd arrived. The coffee shop was next. Stephen was halfway to the coffee shop when his phone buzzed through the car's Bluetooth. The name on the display hit him like a punch. Linda Cross.
She's calling now. Can't even wait until coffee to start fishing for help.
"Stephen? It's me, Linda. I hope I am not interrupting anything important."
Not at all. I was just on my way to the cafe, looking forward to it.
I wasn't sure you'd actually agree to meet. I've had a rough few years since we last spoke. My husband Richard passed away from cancer last spring, and now my brother-in-law Donald, he's been out of work, barely staying afloat.
I am sorry for your loss, Linda. What does Donald do exactly?
He's been in logistics for 20 years. Dispatching, routing, the whole thing. You wouldn't happen to know of any openings, would you?
Funny you should mention logistics. As a matter of fact, I might have a lead. But why don't we wait until we're face to face?
He ended the call and pulled into the coffee shop parking lot, the autumn leaves crunching under his tires. The folder in his briefcase felt heavier than ever. Stephen killed the engine but didn't move. He reached for the briefcase on the passenger seat and flipped it open.
2 folders. One for Donald's future, the other for Linda's past.
He pulled out the unmarked folder and opened it. Inside was a photocopy of his company's original articles of incorporation, dated 1994. Beneath the standard legal phrases, one clause stood out. No person named Linda Ann Cross, born the 14th of March, 1940, shall ever be employed, contracted, or receive any compensation from this firm.
I had that clause drafted the morning after she left. My lawyer thought I was joking.
He'd kept the original locked in his office, safe for 30 years, behind a painting of the first warehouse he ever owned. Every year, he took it out and read it, not out of bitterness, out of discipline. His attorney had called it petty. Stephen had called it insurance.
Nothing petty about it. I made certain she'd never profit from my success, not 1 cent.
He slid the document back into the folder, closed the briefcase, and finally stepped out of the car. The coffee shop door was only 20 feet away. The little bell above the door jingled as Stephen walked in. He chose a table by the window, the one with the best view of the door. He ordered a black coffee, no sugar. Some habits never change. Outside, a car door slammed. Linda Cross stepped onto the sidewalk, clutching her handbag like a shield. She pushed through the door, eyes scanning the room. When she spotted Stephen, her smile was immediate and rehearsed.
Stephen, you look, well, really well.
So do you, Linda. Please, sit.
She let out a breath, smoothing her skirt under the table.
After Richard died, I thought I'd manage, but the debts, and now Donald, it's just been one thing after another.
I heard about Richard. I am sorry. He was a good man, from what I remember.
You are kind. Not everyone would have agreed to meet after the way I left.
Water under the bridge. Linda, tell me about now. You mentioned Donald on the phone.
He's been out of work for months. I thought maybe you might know someone in logistics who's hiring.
What does he do exactly? I still have contacts from the old days.
Dispatching and routing. He was at a freight company for nearly 20 years. Very dependable.
That's a coincidence. I happen to know a major firm in town that's always looking for experienced dispatchers.
Really, Stephen? That would be a godsend. He's a good man, just down on his luck.
Stephen's hand moved to the briefcase beside his chair. He released the clasps with a soft click.
Let me see if I have something here that might help.
He pulled out a manila folder but kept it closed on the table, his palm resting casually on top of it.
What's that?
Stephen flipped open the folder and slid it across the table. Inside was Donald Marsh's employee photograph and a company personnel summary. The letterhead at the top caught Linda's eye immediately. Reeves Logistics.
That's your company.
Yes, I founded it 30 years ago, right after you left.
Her fingers trembled as she scanned the page, stopping at the hire date, 7 years ago.
Donald works for you.
He has for 7 years. A model employee, never missed a day.
Linda's face went pale. The brother-in-law she had begged for had been employed by Stephen longer than any job Donald had ever held.
That's not possible. He never mentioned. How could he not know?
He never asked who owned the company. Just like you, never asked what I'd built.
Stephen flipped to the quarterly evaluation summary. Every metric was green. Every review was glowing. He placed the promotion recommendation letter on top, signed by his director, waiting for his final signature.
He's getting promoted after all this time?
Next quarter. It's been pending for weeks. I am signing it myself. She looked like she wanted to cry. But it wasn't gratitude. It was confusion.
Stephen, why are you doing this? After everything I did.
She finally asked the right question. But I wasn't done answering, because the man you dismissed built a company that rewards hard work. And Donald worked hard.
His hand slid to the briefcase once more. where the second folder sat untouched.
But there's one more thing you should see. A policy I've had since 1994.
Stephen pulled a second, thinner folder from his briefcase and slid a single photocopied page across the table toward Linda.
What is this?
Linda read the highlighted clause aloud, her voice barely a whisper. No person named Linda Ann Cross, born the 14th of March 1940, shall ever be employed, contracted, or receive any compensation from this firm. Her eyes traced the words twice, 3 times, as if waiting for them to rearrange themselves.
You had this written. About me? Since the beginning.
I filed it with the state the month after you left, 30 years ago.
He tapped the date stamp at the bottom of the page. March 1994. The month her words had cut deepest.
Why, Stephen? Why would you do that?
Stephen said nothing. He folded his hands on the table and waited, his silence a heavier answer than any words. The coffee shop felt colder now. The second folder was open, and the entire conversation had turned into something no one could take back. Stephen leaned back in his chair, steepling his fingers. For a long moment, he just looked at Linda across the table.
The policy's been in place since the company was founded. It's ironclad.
But why would you put my name in it? That's not a policy. That's a vendetta.
Call it what you want. It's legally binding, and it's personal.
Linda's hands trembled as she pushed the document back toward him, as if it were poisoned.
You can't still be angry about the divorce. It was 30 years ago.
This isn't about anger, Linda. It's about accuracy. You made a prediction. I ensured it came true.
I don't understand. What prediction?
Stephen's smile returned, small, cold, and final.
I'll tell you why, Linda. It all goes back to one sentence you spoke in 1994. Do you remember the last thing you said to me in that kitchen, Linda? March 1994.
That was a long time ago. I was young and angry.
You said I had no direction. You said I'd never be more than a warehouse worker.
I was wrong. Okay? Look at you now.
Yes, you were wrong. But you didn't just call me directionless.
The air in the coffee shop thickened. Linda's fingers found the edge of the policy document, as if bracing.
You told me I'd never amount to anything. Those exact words.
The words hung between them like a verdict. Linda's mouth opened, but no sound came out.
I made sure you were right. About yourself.
But he didn't explain what that meant. He just waited, his eyes fixed on hers, daring her to remember.
This policy isn't about revenge. It's about making sure your prediction about me never applied to yourself.
I don't understand. What are you saying?
For 30 years, this policy has kept you out of my company. You'll never work for me, never contract with me, never benefit.
The precision of the clause finally clicked in Linda's mind. She had insulted his potential. He had legally barred hers.
So Donald can work for you, but I can't. Even now, after all these years.
Donald earned his place. You lost yours the moment you told me I'd never amount to anything.
Linda's hand went to her mouth. A sob she couldn't suppress cut through the cafe noise.
Please, Stephen. I said I was sorry. What do you want from me?
I don't want anything, Linda. I just wanted you to understand what you set in motion 30 years ago.
He tapped the policy document again, his finger resting on her name. The silence that followed was an answer in itself.
Did you ever love me at all, Stephen? Or was I just the first person you needed to prove wrong?
This isn't about feelings, Linda. It never was. I am here to discuss policy, nothing more.
Linda dabbed her eyes with a napkin. Her composure shattered. The cafe noises seemed to fade around them.
Then, why are you even here? Just to humiliate me?
I am here because you asked for help. Help for Donald. He's the one exception to my rule.
Confusion flickered across Linda's face. She looked down at the policy document, then back up at Stephen.
Exception? You just said no one with my name could ever work for you. How is Donald any different?
The policy only blocks you, Linda. Not your family, not your brother-in-law.
He let the silence hang. The irony was a blade, and Linda finally felt its edge.
Donald is a good man. He'll get his promotion, and you'll never see a penny of it. Every new employee orientation, every contract I signed for 30 years, I remembered you. This policy was my reminder.
Linda's sobbing became audible. A nearby patron glanced over, then quickly looked away.
Please, Stephen, just stop. I am sorry. I was wrong about everything.
Sorry doesn't rewrite incorporation documents, Linda. Regret doesn't pay 30 years of interest.
He lifted the policy page and held it up as if it were a diploma.
This paper cost me nothing to file, but it's been worth millions in satisfaction.
Why are you being so cruel? This isn't the man I married.
No, that man died the moment you walked out. I became someone else. Someone who turns insults into clauses.
Linda's hand trembled as she wiped her cheek. She reached for her coffee, but the cup was empty.
But I am not here to explain the past. I am here to answer your question. And I still haven't given you the real reason.
Why, Stephen? Why go to all this trouble? You have everything. Why drag me here just to watch me fall apart?
Stephen picked up his cup, took a slow sip of the now cold coffee, and set it down with a deliberate clink on the saucer. Then, for the first time since they'd sat down, he smiled. Not a warm smile, something colder, older, like a blade finally drawn after decades of waiting. Linda flinched as if he'd struck her. A tear slid down her cheek, and she didn't wipe it away. She just stared at that smile. He looked directly at her, eyes glittering like polished stones. The silence stretched thick and suffocating.
Because of 6 words, Linda, 6 words you spoke in that kitchen 30 years ago.
Her breath caught in her throat. She knew what was coming. Her hands gripped the edge of the table.
Please, don't say it.
His smile hardened into something final. He leaned forward, elbows on the table, reducing the space between them, and the coffee shop seemed to hold its breath with her.
You told me something that day, Linda. Something I've carried in my pocket for 30 years.
I know what I said. I've replayed it 1,000 times.
Then you know why this moment feels like it's been waiting for us.
He slid the policy document closer to her, the yellowed paper catching the light. His hand was perfectly steady.
It was just a cruel thing I said in anger. I never meant for it to define your life.
But it did, and now it defines yours.
For a long moment, no one spoke. The espresso machine hissed in the background like a distant clock ticking.
You told me.
But he didn't finish. Instead, he let the weight of the unfinished sentence press down on her like a hand over her mouth. The coffee shop seemed to hold its collective breath again, waiting for the words that would finally complete the circle.
I'd never amount to anything.
The words landed like a hammer, and Linda's face crumpled as if she'd been struck by a physical blow.
So I made sure you'd never amount to me.
She doubled over as if he'd punched her in the stomach, sobs racking her body.
This policy was my answer. Not revenge, a closing argument that took 3 decades to deliver.
Her tears fell onto the table, blotting the ink of her own name on the yellowed policy page.
For 30 years, every contract I signed, I remembered. And now, so will you.
She tried to speak, but her throat closed around the words, and only a strangled sob escaped. Stephen nodded slightly, a satisfied glint in his eye, as if checking a final item off a long list. The coffee shop remained silent, save for Linda's sobs echoing off the walls. Stephen caught the waitress's eye and made a subtle gesture for the bill. He pulled a crisp 20 from his wallet and laid it on the table beside the cold cup. Then he stood, buttoned his blazer, and looked down at her one last time.
Goodbye, Linda. Donald will be promoted next quarter, as promised. You'll never see a dime.
He turned and walked toward the door, his footsteps measured against the tile floor. The bell chimed as the door swung shut, and then the coffee shop fell into a deeper silence. Linda didn't move. She couldn't. The policy document blurred through her tears. Her hand trembled as she reached for the policy document, but she couldn't touch it. Outside, an engine started. Stephen's car pulled away from the curb, his face impassive behind the wheel. Inside, Linda sat frozen, her tears still falling, the proof of his long game spread out before her like a verdict she could never appeal. Stephen's car pulled into the late morning traffic and disappeared around the corner. He glanced in the rearview mirror, not at the road, but at the coffee shop shrinking behind him. A small, genuine smile finally broke across his face. The first one of the morning. Inside the coffee shop, nothing moved. Linda remained at the table, her shoulders hunched, her breath coming in shallow gasps. The 2 coffee cups were cold. The $20 bill lay untouched beside them. She wiped her eyes with the back of her hand, but the tears kept coming. Somewhere across town, Donald Marsh was answering a dispatch call, unaware of the war that had just ended in a coffee shop. The policy document lay before her, her name still legible through the tear stains. She had told him he would never amount to anything, and he had made sure she never would to him. Stephen stepped through the glass doors of Reeves Logistics and walked across the marble lobby. The receptionist smiled. He didn't notice. His mind remained in the coffee shop. He took the elevator to the top floor and entered his corner office. He didn't sit. He walked to the window and looked out over the city he now owned.
30 years of waiting, and the moment was as clean as he had imagined.
His eyes moved to the small framed document on the wall, the incorporation clause. He had it framed, not out of pride, but as an artifact of discipline. The clause read, "No person named Linda Ann Cross shall ever be employed or compensated by this firm." The ink had faded, but the intent had not. Some men build empires to prove a point. Stephen Reeves built his to make sure one person never forgot theirs.